Yo, what's up? I'm QRS Terry, and today we're going to be talking about AI Town. For those that don't know, I take notes every day and I ask myself, what's the future? I store them in a detailed journal. This journal can be accessed at everydays.wtf, and the video that you're watching right now is a part of that journal. So if you're on YouTube watching this, you're only getting a tiny itty bit of the experience. If you want to know what future thinking looks like, go ahead and take a look at my own future thinking journal. With that being said, I want to get into something that I've seen, and this has been going on for pretty much the entirety of this year. So earlier this year, some researchers at Stanford released a paper. It was about generative agents. And this paper took the world by storm. People are still writing about this paper to this date. I mean, this paper was released like Q1 of 2023, and it's almost Q4 of 2023, and this is still making headlines in some unique ways. I want to play one of the videos from Joon Park. He was one of the researchers that at Stanford that did it, and he's going to explain a bit about this town. And I think that this is important for just where we're about to go, because this is going to get real weird real quickly. I mean, trust me, AI towns, it sounds weird. Let's take a look at
that
it.
we developed, featuring the common affordances of a small village, ranging from houses, apartments, cafe, bars, schools, stores, and the sub-areas and objects that make the space functional, like the bathroom, kitchen, and common room in a family house, and a bookshelf and a table in the common room. And we populated this space with 25 agents and initialized each of them with one paragraph of natural language description to depict each agent's identity, including their occupation and relationship with other agents, and seeded this paragraph into the agent's memory at the start of the simulation. So that is it. That is all the input we ever give to these agents. And then these agents interact with their environment through their actions based on their own volition. And here's how this works in Smallville. So first, the agents generate a natural language statement describing their current action, such as Isabella Rodriguez is drinking coffee. They then translate this into concrete movements that affect the Sandbox game world, along with the automatically generated emojis that visually describe the agent's actions, and they influence the state of the objects in this world. So a bed can be occupied when an agent is sleeping, and the refrigerator can be empty when an agent uses up the ingredients to make breakfast. Then to interact with each other, they determine whether they want to engage in conversations when they see another agent. And they generate natural language dialogue if they decide to engage. So like this dialogue between Isabella and Tom about Sam Moore, who is a fellow agent in Smallville, initiated with a memory that he is running for local mayor. So here, Isabella remarks, I'm still weighing my options, but I've been discussing the election with Sam Moore. What are your thoughts on him? And Tom responds, to be honest, I don't like Sam Moore. I think he's out of touch with the community and doesn't have our best interest at heart.
Now, when you think about this, right? When you think about what they built at Stanford, one of the things that you're going to realize is nothing in this game really exists outside of the 25 personas, like he specified. And I call them 25 personas because that's literally all it is. It's just a paragraph of text of who that person is, what they do, who their family members are. Then they're dropped in an environment, and you can just literally watch this simulation of virtual life unfold. Now, there's a lot of theories around simulation, a lot of media that's covered it, and most people cite The Matrix, and that's one of my favorite films. But in this case, I do want to cover a different film. It's called Free Guy. It was popular, but it came out like during the pandemic or when all the pandemic stuff was happening. So I don't know how many people saw it. For that reason, I actually want to play a clip. I want to play this clip from the trailer because it shows a really good depiction of how intriguing non-player character or virtual conversations can be had. And it's not the Matrix in the sense where the Matrix was very deep. It was very philosophical. And I think that that is a fine depiction, but this was more in line of like what I envision and what we're seeing AIs actually do. So I'm gonna jump to that clip really quick.
There's something inside you, guy.
I don't want something inside me.
I expected you to just follow the rules, but you are so much more than that. Put these on.
Okay, fine. Oh my God! What are these, trick glasses or something?
Guy, there is no easy way to say this. This world, it's a video game. You're not real.
Please stop my.
And the guy responsible for this world was going to destroy it.
You've met God?
Yes, he's an absolute troll.
Trolls exist. Buddy, if we're not real, doesn't that mean that nothing you do matters?
I am sitting here with my best friend trying to help him get through a tough time. Now, if that's not real, I don't know what is.
Now, that's a very interesting clip, right? If you haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to spoil it. But in that clip, most of the people that you saw there don't exist. They're actually non-player characters, and they are in the movie. And the whole premise is like, their game's going to get destroyed. So Guy, the main character, has to go and try to figure out what he's going to do about this world that's going to be coming to an end soon. Recommend watching it. It's a really good case study into the whole notion of virtual generative agents and the lives they live, and the repetitiveness associated with it. So we thought. And just as always, art imitates life, life imitates art. We are at a point where AI Town now exists. You can now create your own virtual AI town that mimics Joon Park's research that he just spoke about from Stanford as it relates to their generative agents. Now, what is cool about AI Town is anyone can do it. It's very simple to get started. You need an OpenAI API key, you need a GitHub account, and then you need a convex.dev account. I haven't done this yet, but I looked at the whole process on GitHub and it was fairly straightforward. I mean, they literally walk you through how to make your own AI town. Now, this is important because it means now for the first time ever, you can actually mimic the research that was done at Stanford in a plug and play manner. That's an important note to have. So now we're at a point where AI Town exists. It's a virtual town where AI characters live, socialize, and chat. Now that sounds a little odd, but here it is. This is me going to AI Town, and you can click on each character. You can see that each character has a persona. So in this case, we've got Grumpy Bob, and Bob's having a conversation with Kira. And remember, Bob's always grumpy. So you see in this conversation, jump. Now he's talking to Pete. He's saying, Pete says, "Hi, Bob, how are you?" And Bob says, "Hey, Pete, I'm just gardening, same as usual." And, Pete's like, "That's wonderful. Bob, gardening is a beautiful way to connect with God's creation." And Bob's like, "Prefer gardening alone, Pete. Thanks anyway." Oh, and then Pete is like, "Oh, sorry for intruding, Bob. I understand the more important things and all these other things." And Bob's like, "Thanks. Peace and quiet is all I need." Basically telling Pete to go away. Pete leaves, and then you can go on to the next person and see it. Kira, I'm not going to read all this stuff, but basically, Kira thinks everything is, she wants everybody to think everything's happy, but deep down, she's depressed. And so you can read the dialogue, and you'll see that some of the conversations that she's having, in this case with Alice, are reminiscent of someone that might be going through depression. Now, I think that the whole concept of having personas and being able to simulate things is one that's fascinating in itself. AI Town gives us a glimpse into that. But the question you might be wondering is, why is this interesting? And that's a good question to ask. This is interesting mainly because this is not one instance of ChatGPT. So if you think about each one of these virtual agents, and you think about generative AI and how usually you start a conversation with one generative agent, what we're getting a glimpse of in AI Town is several instances of AI agents talking to other AI agents. Now, if you follow along here, that means you've got one chat GPT not talking to you as a human, but talking to another GPT. And in some circles, this is called autonomous agents or generative agents. And they work completely without human interaction, right? You don't have to go and prompt it. The game engine in this case is dictating their movements. Beyond that game engine, you're then having the personas define what the agents will do and make decisions based on its recent memories and its outputs and thoughts on it. Very interesting stuff. The main takeaway here is we now have virtual simulations of human life in social settings. Now, what can be interesting is most people go really deep and they say, well, are we living in a simulated reality? I could do a whole video on simulation theory. This is not that video, but I will say beyond simulation theory, what I find very intriguing about personas is you can now simulate uh, new forms of entertainment. So the way I would use an AI town is I would actually use it for storytelling, right? So what is a story? A story is comprised of characters. I mean, any major franchise that you know, I don't care if it's Fast and Furious, Harry Potter, or Star Wars, you like the characters. You become one with the characters. And by your relationship and by your association with said characters, you find yourself ingrained in that story and captivated by the storytelling that happens. And so I say this is interesting because from a writer's perspective, you can only write so many stories or you can only keep up with so many things that are happening. But let's say I want to write a fiction book or I want to showcase, I need to figure out dialogue for something. If I've got my own town with my own characters in it and the characters have their distinct personas as it relates, I could throw this simulation up and never run out of content. Now, in a world right now where, writers are on strike, I know you're probably, if you're a writer, I feel for you. I definitely feel for you. I'm an author myself, so I understand how crazy the world is. You probably are like, Q, why the hell are you giving people this idea? This is not going to keep us in business. This is going to make our fight a little bit harder. I understand it. I'm just giving you a glimpse into what the technologies that exist are. This is an emerging technology. This is recently available to us in the last 72 hours or so. And I'm just giving you a use case for what it could be used for. I mean, I think that interactive storytelling is probably going to be a way of the future because again, this is something that we know works. Like we know if we build characters with great backstories and great story arcs, that people will find value in that. They will be entertained and they will be willing to part with their money to make special things happen. So what are some other examples of this? AI Town can't be the only thing that we're talking about here. I agree. I understand. You're probably not going to like my next example, largely because this next example is it's a little weird. It's similar, but it's called Cat Town. So I'm going to show you this. I'm not going to read through all the things, but it's the whole concept of AI Town, but it's a virtual town where cats hang out. And it's powered by OpenAI. So every cat is basically its own generative agent. Think of it as a chat GPT engine. Here you have Miles. Miles is a cat that's orange and he's named after Little Yachty and he doesn't know a lot of things. You've got Chanel and it's a garden cat. She's from California. And again, these all have personas. You can go to Cat Town. You can actually see the cats interacting with each other. You can read the dialogue. In this case, you will have to log in, but this is an example of what's to come. Uh, you can say that history often repeats itself. So beyond Cat Town, back in the day, there was a game on the Commodore 64. This is 1985, we're talking about, where it was called Little Computer People. And the game was like a precursor to even Animal Crossing because and even The Sims because everybody cites The Sims. I want to go a little bit further than that, right? This game has no winning conditions and there's no one set setting. Essentially, you play the game and you're looking at the people inside your computer and you're helping them kind of break free. It's a very fascinating concept and it's been around since 1985. So when we cite The Sims or when we cite some of these also, other RPG games or just virtual environments, we have to remember that this idea is not a new one. This is something of the past. I could keep going on this, but I know I'm running at time just about. So every day I want to remind you that I ask myself, what's the future? And I'm going to be asking myself more on this whole concept of simulated environments and realities. This framework is now available on GitHub. Anyone can run it. And because of that, I want you to go check out my WTF journal at everydays.wtf. If you check it out there, you'll understand some of the things and concepts that I'm thinking on as a future thinker, and you might be able to start writing your own or have your own thoughts. You can leave comments on my notes, or you can go ahead and start your own and share it with us. And in the future, I want to see other people with their WTF journals and their calls and their claims, and it'd be cool to at some point, all have like a meetup and just be like, "Yo, this is what I predicted. This is what I got right." But in order to get there, someone's got to kind of bear the torch and say, hey, this is the way. It's the way of the future. Check it out. Beyond that, I will catch you in the future. I've got to run, but it's been fun. And I recommend watching that movie, Free Guy, if you haven't, and really spend some time pondering on generative AI agents because this is the future we now exist in.